Done in a podcast where we talk to entrepreneurs, artists, creators, technologists about their work, about how they shake things up. We delve into the stories to inspire you, but also obviously to help you out on your own journey. What if you could win over the next couple of months the one and only Airbus as one of your customers? Well, today is your lucky day because our guest will walk you through the exact steps and process to follow to be able to join its accelerator program and potentially become one of the aerospace giant's future suppliers or partners. Rey Buckman is the Airbus BizLab Campus Leader in Hamburg. He explains how Airbus encourages and structures innovation both internally for its own employees and also with a wide range of innovative startups. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Rey Buckman. Hi, Rey. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hey, Michel. Thank you. I'm really fine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, after a long weekend.
Oh, yes. Long, sunny Easter weekend. I was moving house, so that was really fun. Yeah.
Oh, great. So, thanks for being with us. Let's get started by us learning a bit more about you. So you're the Airbus BizLab Campus Leader in Hamburg. Can you tell us a bit about what the objectives or what's the concept behind the BizLab?
So the BizLab is an aerospace accelerator, and we are transforming ideas into businesses. We have been set up since the beginning as a hybrid model. So on the one hand, we have startups, external companies that apply to the program that have the objective to enter into a partnership. And on the other hand, we have Airbus internal employees. We call them intrapreneurs that also apply to the program. And they want to show within the 6-month program that behind their idea is really a new valuable business.
Wow, that's interesting. And what does your role entails exactly as the leader of that campus in Hamburg?
So we have 4 campuses in the BizLab network at the moment. So we have one in Toulouse, one in Bangalore, one in Madrid, and one in Hamburg. Myself, I'm leading the one here in Hamburg. I've been in this BizLab campus since the very beginning. So really started with building the program, the coaching, the scouting. And now since 2.5 years or so, I'm also leading the team here. And we are a team of 7 people running the campus.
Great. And I was doing a bit of research about you, obviously, and you have I would say, a very interesting and diverse personal, academic, professional background. If you were to do a 1-minute summary of Rey, how would you do this? No pressure. No pressure.
Okay. 1-minute summary of me. So I would say that my red line or my silver lining is that I've been in and out the organization, Airbus as a big organization. I've spent some time also outside the organization within the startup world and innovation world. I have spent quite some time also on the other continents. So I lived some time in China, in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and then in different cities around Europe. And my personal background is a mix of Ghana and Germany. So I think from that background, quite diverse in terms of people that I work with, cultures that I work with. And this can also translate into organizational cultures and different perspectives on the future. So I think this is really what aligns all my experiences, that you always have different views on reality, different views on what's happening next. And I was always in a situation where I was really motivated by the people. So why do humans behave in a certain way in an organization, how they develop in an organization, and also how they then bring to life new projects.
Great. And where were you in China exactly? I studied myself there many years ago, so I'm quite interested.
In Beijing. I was in Beijing in 2009. So really right after the Olympic Games. And when everything quieted down a little bit, I came in and I was there for 3 months.
Great. You enjoyed the experience?
Yes, very much. Actually, there were 2 for me fundamental experiences. One for me is at one point I draw a map of in Beijing of all the places I visited, and I noticed how little I have seen knowing the fact, this is the second fact, I didn't leave Beijing once within the 3 months. I really spent all my time there. I didn't even see the big wall or anything because I really wanted to maximize only of that space. But still, I found out that I know so little about even that big city.
Yeah, but it's quite an efficient and strategic approach to discovering Beijing, though.
Yeah.
Great. So, Ray, you are one of the confirmed speakers at the We're at Innovation Summit happening in Berlin the end of June, so June 25th and the 26th. Can you tell us a bit about what you'll talk about specifically?
So first, I think what is interesting in the We're at Summit is that it's not only about We're technologies per se, but also how new innovation take shape and are shaping the world around us, but also enter into new organizations. So first, I want to show that the industry that I'm in, or that I'm most familiar with, the aerospace industry, is full of wearable technologies. We see it in workers technologies that are surrounding workers, but also people that are sitting in an aircraft that are either flying in an aircraft or that are operating while the aircraft is flying. So really show how these technologies are shaping our industry. And then, but more specifically, really, I want to talk about how all these companies out there, startups out there that are into wearable technologies, how they can connect with our industry and really use the examples that we have within the BizLab of how startups have made it through the program and now into partnerships with Airbus. And by this, really bringing, I think, a new perspective also to the We're Summit, where it is about the next steps beyond cool technologies, but how do they actually enter in new industries.
Pretty interesting, and what I suggest is maybe we dig deeper right away on the technology, since you've mentioned that.
Sure.
What could you mention some projects, or what are the tech developments that you see happening in your campus and in aerospace and in general?
Let's see. I think one is about enhancing the worker itself. So if we look back into history, we can really see that. People have always used machines around them. Like even the carpenter that used a hammer and a nail, it was somehow a machine that he or she used to frame a new object. And now when you look into the production of an aircraft, it's huge, it's highly complex, but at the same time, it's still very manual. We only in brackets producing almost 800 aircrafts per year. So compared that to automotive manufacturing, it's considerably smaller, and a lot of the working steps are including human beings. So what we are exploring is actually how do the capabilities of humans can be made easier, so in ergonomics, and also how can we make it more safe for the employees and at the same time more efficient. So how can we make sure that there are no data lags between or gaps between an employee working and measuring and bringing this into the new tools. This is really one environment where we in the BizLab environment have explored. And there's a startup that is called Synergeticon, for example, that we have brought through the program and is now really one of the technology providers for Airbus. And at the same time, also we're exploring how we can create new interfaces between passengers and the environment when they are flying. So we have two startups, for example, in-flight VR. They are using virtual reality for in-flight entertainment. At the moment, you are sitting in your aircraft seat quite comfortably, but then you're looking into a screen and you're not really immersed into a new world. Although you are there for 3, 4, 5 hours, sometimes even imagining the new place where you're going. So bringing virtual reality closer to you is really helping you also to already enjoy your flight while you're sitting in an aircraft. And then at the same time, what is surrounding the people in an aircraft seat is the textiles, but then also some of the plastic covers where you're pushing buttons and so on. And all of this is where we have another startup called TG0, which is putting pressure mapping into the seats. It's changing the buttons into functional materials that can sense human touch, and by that also creating a new experience for people that are flying.
Can you explain, without getting into the very technical details, just explain a bit how the last one, the TG0, works?
Mm-hmm. So they have developed a patented technology which is using a functional material, and that is replacing electronic sensors. So at the moment, you would have a device that is using buttons that you push. For example, when you call the cabin crew, or also when you change the lighting, or how you operate, also the in-flight entertainment system. But it's always buttons that are then linked to some electronics. What this startup has developed is a conductive or non-conductive material that is then sensing the human touch, and through this combination of the signal and the algorithms that they have developed is then transmitting the information to the machine that you are trying to operate. So by that, it's cheaper, or it's more low cost, it's low maintenance because you have less parts, but at the same time you also have much more functionalities because it's this tactile that is giving the information to the system, and at the same time, it's lightweight, it's waterproof, it's dustproof, and really changing the interface between you and you as a passenger and the surroundings.
Great. So basically, what you mentioned is that a big part of the innovation is going towards the production, the workers, and the safety of those workers.
Yes.
And another part is more focused, let's say, on the flight experience, the passengers.
Exactly. This is really how you can summarize in these two categories. You can really summarize the type of innovation that we as the BizLab are looking for. On the one hand, Airbus as a customer, and there you can really see a huge organization that is working in high-tech industrial processes and is looking for new technologies to create higher efficiencies, more digital processes. And there's what we talk about is digital design, manufacturing, and services. And at the same time, we're looking for innovation that is for our customers, so our markets, and aviation, airlines, and then eventually the final passenger is one of them.
Okay, and how that's pretty interesting. Since you have an accelerator, how do you select the startups that you work with?
We have a stage process. So at the very first funnel is anyone can apply, and we do that through a platform. It's called f6s.com. You submit your application, and this is the very first step of how to get in contact with us. We are then reviewing these applications, and we have a first filter that we go through to really already take some startups or some applications out that do not fit at all. Then at the next step, we are then having experts from Airbus from the different fields that are reviewing the applications. And this is where we're trying to get to, is that that we have a down selection of about 30 startups per campus. So that makes about 120 startups in general in one season, where we have Airbus experts reviewing them, giving feedback, and already engaging with the startups on that level. Also, what we do is we have very short interviews to get to know the people, because at the end, in an innovation process, and this is similar to any kind of also business angel or other venture capitalist investor, is it's all about the team. So we really want to know also the people that are behind the innovation. Then we go to the one level down selection. So we get down to 15 teams per campus, in total about 60, that we invite to a 2-day bootcamp. And this bootcamp itself is already an award or a winning opportunity, because as a startup, you have so many assumptions about industry, especially a complex one like the aerospace industry. And you have the chance to participate to this 2-day bootcamp, where you will be then personally meeting with the experts that have already reviewed your application. You will propose your use cases and you get direct feedback. And in the past, we have seen amazing things happening from people, to be honest, leaving after one day because they say, okay, I realize that actually my technology has no use for this industry. Okay. But in the most cases, really startups understanding how that technology fits in. And this is then from there on, we then do the final selection with the top a management jury, where we have members of the board and other managers from Airbus that are participating as jury members, and that are then selecting the final 5 to 6 startups per season, per campus. So we are looking at about 20 to 25 startups that we select every year to enter the program.
And when you say per season, that's for the year, or it's for the 6 month?
6 months. 6 months. We have one program once per year. That's what we call one season, and we started always around October. So this year, the season 5 will start on the 14th of October. The application phase will be from May to July, and then throughout August, September, we do the selection.
Okay, and when you do the selection, is this done by campus or it's done as a whole?
The milestones are all the same because we really want to make sure that we run a global program and that we also see what are the interactions between the startups on the different platforms. And so let's say the selections are always done together, the final ones, but the in-between times is what we run per campus. So we have one jury per campus, we have one bootcamp per campus, but at the end, when we do the very final selection, we all align among each other and then do the final selection together.
Nice. And how does the program look like? What kind of support or content is included?
First of all, it's a 6-month program, and we are right now, this week, we are in the final week of the season 4 program. And again, it's global. The final element is the Global BizLab Summit that this year will happen in Toulouse, where we bring all the teams together in one location and really showcase what has happened in the last 6 months. But backtrack, so the season 5 will start on the 14th of October, and then the 6-month program is split in 3 phases. And each phase has a gate. And what is really important to understand before I go into the details of the gates is that the program, it's what we call it's tailor-made. So each startup is following their own program. With each startup has their own coach that they meet on a weekly basis. Okay. But at the same time, there are some, let's say, learnings or global understandings that everyone has to follow. Because through this process, we have found out that in the program with the objective of getting into partnership with Airbus has certain maturity levels to reach in this understanding of building a partnership. So it starts with the very first 2 months, which we call the customer phase or the customer desirability phase, to be more exact, which ends with the customer gate. And in these 2 months, each startup is meeting probably 20 to 30 potential internal customers. Wow. And this, for me, already the first learning, I think, as a startup to get into an industry. Just because you have been selected from an accelerator or just because you have maybe the chance to meet 1 or 2 people doesn't make you yet have a contract, because this is where really the business development starts. You are maybe leapfrogging the discussions that you would usually have to have with procurement or legal teams and all of that. We're helping with that because we have designed a framework where we can get you faster into those conversations, but you still have to do them. You still have to do a lot of internal business development and really understanding what your customer wants, even you have met them before. This is 2 months, and in these 2 months, it's high pressure. You have to meet a lot of people. You have to do a lot of pitch trainings. You have to do a lot of trainings also how to work in this industry. What are the value chains that are running in this industry? We have different supplier levels. So building an understanding of that is really the objective of the first 2 months. And then at the end of the 2 months, the objective is that you sign an internal customer, which is your proof of concept.
And internal customers could be Airbus or one of its suppliers. Is that what you mean?
The main focus is Airbus internal. So okay. One of the Airbus functions. So maybe it's the marketing department. Maybe it's the production. Maybe it's the final assembly line. Maybe it's the IT department. Okay. Somebody, and this is just departments. At the end, it's person XYZ in department B. This is the person you really need to address, because this will be your champion. This will be the person that will push you through all the different hurdles that you will be facing. This is the person that will provide you data, that provides you access, that provides you further interviews. And this is really what you need to get this attention. And this is the first phase. And then we start the proof of concept phase. And in the BizLab program, it's a paid proof of concept. So it's actually similar to a procurement contract that you get after the 2 months. And then the next phase is the technical phase, the technical viability phase. And in this phase, we want to see the first prototypes, because probably you already have cool technology as a startup. Probably you have tested it in the laboratory, or you have tested it in other industries, but you have not tested it yet on this specific use case in the aerospace industry. And this is what we want to see in the next 2 months. We know that 2 months is really short, especially for our industry. So we do not want in that phase that you have a fully certified product. This can still take a lot of time, but we want to see how your product would behave, or how your technology would behave in our use case. And then we end that phase with a technical gate. And then the next phase, the last 2 months, is what we call the business phase. And then this business phase is where we start asking for numbers. So we start saying, what is the business case? How will you make money with this product? What will be your business relationship with Airbus? What kind of contract are you aiming for? And is this then a profitable relationship for you and for Airbus as a use case? Might it be that you're working directly with Airbus, or would it be rather that you work with another tier 1 or tier 2 supplier of Airbus? This is all the questions we're answering now in this final phase, and then ending with the business gate. And also at the business gate, this is where you then deliver your final report, which is the end of the acceleration program. And by this 3 phases, you have then shown to an internal customer, or to a customer that is interested in your technology, you have shown the solution that you have for that problem statement, and you have shown from your side how do you intend to make business together with Airbus in this industry. And then it might be that a post-acceleration discussion will start.
Okay, but is there a specific setup for you guys in terms of what comes next? Do you guys have usually work with equity, or it depends, or it's a case by case?
So as BizLab, we are not taking any equity in the startups that go through the program.
Okay.
However, we do have Airbus Ventures, which is a corporate venture capital fund, and they are looking into all of the startups. They are also part of the selection committee, and in some cases, they do an equity investment. But we have split the 2 decisions of taking equity in the company should have a different framework for the decision than should I partner with that team, or does that team have an interesting technology to offer?
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
How we usually continue in post-acceleration is either direct contracting, so it is that the startup is becoming a supplier. It can also be a license agreement that we continue working with the team, but we're interested in the technology, but then use it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And a third option is that actually we have enabled the startup to enter into our markets, and then we are having another form of agreement or another form of partnership where we are sharing into the revenue generation or into the data generation, whatever the value is that we think is in the collaboration with the startup. And also where the startup thinks it adds the most value to their business development.
Okay. And just before we move into the entrepreneur part of that project, you've been there since the beginning of the campus in Hamburg. What advice would you give to a startup interested in joining your program?
Apply. I think what I learned is that from a startup's perspective is be sure what you are looking for. What I tend to say is that as an accelerator, we also have a portfolio approach similar to an investor. So at the end, we give our best that each startup has success, but at the same time, also not everyone will have success, and this is similar to any kind of early stage investment. So if you are in the program, or if you enter the program, be sure what you want to have out of it, and do not be shy in formulating that. Because if you are sure of what you want, then also we, as the ones that are running the program, we can adapt to that, and we can find our something that is a win-win for both of us. This, I think, is very important, where some of the startups are not so clear what they actually want.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you have young startups joining, with limited experience in the aerospace industry, I'm pretty sure it's a bit of daunting endeavor to start working with such a huge company like Airbus. So just going through that process probably brings a lot of learnings in terms of who they are, what they can do, how the industry works, and if there's a good fit.
Definitely. So actually, that was, I remember my very first year, my very first call for projects. I couldn't understand like why we didn't have so many applicants and so on. And actually what we learned is that we had to educate also the startup ecosystem that it's interesting to work in the aerospace industry. Because if you just take the surrounding parameters of very few players, heavily regulated market, a lot of hardware, so a lot of upfront investment, these are not necessarily the key criteria where you go as a startup, oh yes, this is what I want to do, because it can really break. But the startups that nevertheless went for that challenge and that are still going for that challenge, they have understood that there are certain specifics that only this industry can offer to them. So these are the ones that are, I think, making the biggest leap and that are really motivated by that industry and also by entering it. Because once you made it, once you've understood its working mechanisms, then it can be really, really rewarding and very, very enthusiastic.
That's really interesting. Which brings me to the entrepreneur part of the project. So I've seen you've hosted something like 40 internal projects so far. Is the selection process similar? How do you prioritize those internal projects?
And so across all campuses, we had even more than 40. Here in Hamburg, we had 11 internal projects that went through the program.
Okay.
The process itself is somewhat similar, where we have an open call for application. And then at one point, we then select the teams that are entering into the program. Although the phase in between is a little bit different, mainly because of the fact that the internal projects that we get into the BizLab, so the intrapreneurs, they actually have to leave their current job for 6 months to run the program.
Oh.
So just from a management point of view, this takes some organization. You need to convince a lot of people to let that at least one or two people of that team go for the time of the 6 months. And this is why we have a moment between where we say as BizLab, yes, that project could be really interesting for an accelerator, until the actual start date, it's a little bit longer and requires a little bit more involvement from our side.
Okay, and when you kind of preempted my question, because I was going to try to understand how it works internally. When you look at the projects you've had so far, is there a trend in terms of the types of projects or the types of teams who are participating? Do you get more, I don't know, engineering projects?
Traditionally, it has been always more engineering, and I think that's quite natural in a company like ours, which is very engineering technology driven. However, we do see more applications also from procurement, from HR, which are not necessarily only process improvements, but actually also new business proposals. We have then also a better understanding of where do the projects land afterwards. So from, for example, customer service and also the programs organizations, they are pulling much stronger on certain topics. So we see this as an evolving threat. Yes, threat not in terms of risk, but threat in terms of red line. From my side, I think where we have evolved as a program is that we went from a mindset where we were mainly focusing on the idea, and we talked to a lot of people to understand, is there value in the idea? We moved to, do we believe that entrepreneur or that intrapreneur and the team has the capacity to do what it takes? Because there are so many hurdles, so many challenges that you need to face, especially when you are internal, because you have to do the internal business development as well as the startup development, as well as the product development. And handling these two tasks requires a very specific, a very unique capabilities. So actually from my side, when I evaluate teams now internally, I specifically look for that, for the people that are running the program.
Okay, and what do you have a success rate or some sort of a percentage when you say, I don't know, we've had 10 of those projects, 2 or 3 ended up being implemented? Is there how do the numbers look like? So
currently you mean now for the internal ones?
Yes.
So for the internal ones, we have about 60% of the teams that after they went through the program that are then in the next phase. So next phase can be that we understand this takes some more time. We are not yet ready to bring it fully onto the market, or it is already on the road to implementation. That's about 60%. And really only 40% are somehow stuck or don't move forward or are simply stopped from our side.
And based on the experience you've seen both internally and with startups, what are the skills, the experience, or the capabilities that you've noticed usually participants do not have?
Do not have?
Yeah. What is lacking in general?
So on the startup side, they have a lot of willpower, but what is lacking, and this is not related to their work experience, right? This is related to the understanding of the industry. Yep. Is the understanding of the industry and also patience for the industry and knowing which buttons to push at what time. Because I think if you want to develop a company or a project within the aerospace industry, there's a certain way of getting to the relevant people at the right time, and also to the relevant funding at the right time. You do not ask for the same funding as maybe you would do in the venture capital world. Yeah. So this is like understanding what do I ask at which time, and then how do I phase that into my product development. This understanding in this industry, I think, is generally lacking on the startup side. And I think this is the greatest learning that they go through. On the internal people, so the intrapreneurs, for me, it's almost, you can almost turn it around, because they have a very high amount of, I call it process empathy. They very, very well understand where to go at which time. But what is lacking, or actually what the learning process that they go through is, am I allowed to? Can I do this? And constantly asking for permission, whereas we keep telling them is just try it out, just try it yourself, and you will notice if you get further with it or not. And if you do not get further with it, just change your approach, and constantly iterate of what you're doing. This is, I think, for the internal ones, what they are lacking, especially at the beginning, and where you can see the greatest growth for them throughout the program.
And if we stay on the innovation theme, large corporations have been, very, I would say, self-centered in terms of approach to innovation in the past decades. I think in the aerospace industry, it's been a bit different since you've given the cost of new aircraft programs. You've seen a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of tier one suppliers being actually involved in the design and being brought in as risk-sharing partners. What's your experience in terms of innovation at Airbus with different partners? What are the key challenges, and what are the key advantages that you've noticed so far?
So for me, usually when I do a presentation, what I start with is the speed of innovation, where you see from left to right, you see that new technologies are being rapidly developed faster and faster and faster. But actually, for me, that is not the most important message on that slide. For me, the most important message on the slide is that the further you go to the right, so the further you go into the future where new technologies are developed, the more you see that a certain industry is not anymore proprietary with certain technologies. So actually, you have technologies that penetrate different industries at the same time, and they become very big in doing that. And because this is known, these kind of people or these kind of companies that have access to unique technologies, they're also able to attract funding, quite a lot of funding on the venture capital market or private funding. Mm-hmm. And this is where I think the model of our industry, which has been largely based on big projects, big contracts, and also big funding, where especially private players were a little bit afraid of, where we see a shift and where we see new financing mechanisms and new development cycles. So here, is where we have the speed of innovation, but also the barriers of entry are going down. So what we have decided, and BizLab is just one of these elements that have been put in place inside of Airbus to tackle the challenge of, not avoiding disruption, but actually being part of the disruption and inviting people into the industry and inviting innovators onto your playing field. And by that, we have created different vehicles that test it in different ways. And as the BizLab, the way that we are testing it is that we run this program, which I also sometimes call like a meeting platform. Right? You have for 6 months, both sides can get to know each other, because we also know that the startups that come into our program, they also have the choice to go to other programs, or they have the choice to go to other industries. So it's as well for us a way to show them, hey, all the risks that you have maybe foreseen to enter into this industry, they might be there, they might not be there, but for sure, here are ways how to tackle them. So by that, we're actually opening up in a controlled way, or in an understandable, digestible way.
And based on your experience, what's the biggest roadblock, or not roadblock, but what's the toughest challenge that you've experienced, that you've seen with that program?
I found that the people in this industry have been innovative for a very, very long time. I mean, really, really great products that have developed. And what I find, and so that's why I think also at the very first part of the program, we don't struggle a lot. Actually, finding people that are interested in the startups, what the startups have to offer, even give data, provide access, do testings, give feedback, everything up to a proof of concept, maybe even to a minimal viable product. It's not easy, but it's feasible. And we have seen it now done over and over again. Where I think where we have a drop then is in the next step, really contracts, long-term relationships, where I think where the two worlds are not yet ready, or we have not found yet that mechanism to make these two worlds meet. Because there, when we then say, okay, now we are launching this new program and the product life cycle is 30 years. Can you please sign here that you are on the market for the next 30 years? Obviously, as a startup, very difficult to do, because we all know how it is in the startup world. So this is then, or certification. Now we need to invest X amount of money in the next 2 or 3 years to get the product certified, so that we can then take the next step of actually integration. Again, something very, very difficult for a startup to do. So this is, I think, where we have a gap, where we need to ensure, obviously, the safety and the sustainability of any product that goes into this industry, and at the same time meet also the constraints that a startup is facing in their development.
Okay, and how do you measure success or the outcomes of your program? Obviously, you have your cohort and all of that, but do you personally have some sort of a KPI that you have to meet, or for the program as a whole?
Yes, sure. Yes, no money without KPIs, right?
Yes.
No, for sure. So we have, as I mentioned this word a few times now, partnership.
Yeah.
So we have two main KPIs. Is one, how many of the startups do we transform into new partners for us as Airbus or the industry? And secondly, how many of the internal projects do we get to implementation or into the market? For me, then, this is the two main KPIs. For me, then, there's a third KPI, which is what is the value creation that we actually have? So in the startup world, this means how much investment did the startups attract during or after the program? This is, for us, a way to show that our program is really attractive.
I don't want to take too much of your time, but I have still a few more questions for you.
Sure.
I've seen that you're the co-creator of the BizLab's Africa for Future. Can you tell us a bit what that is?
So Africa for Future is a program which promotes the technology partnership between Airbus and startups on the African continent. So one of the criteria is that the startup must be based in one African country, and must have also in the founding team at least one African national, or someone with a nationality of an African country. And we have started this program because on the one hand, we saw that Africa is dramatically changing at this moment. And I mean, just in the next until 2050, I think there will be 1.5 billion people on this planet that are Africans. And there are so many opportunities that aerospace technologies can have to support some of the development challenges, but actually open new markets and potentially leapfrog some of the development that we saw in other markets. And just to give you one, a lot of people talk about the mobile technologies, how they have transformed how people on the African continent communicate with each other, but also do banking, e-commerce, and so on. And I believe that aerospace technologies with Earth observation or remote sensing, with unmanned logistics, they have also the transformative power. And so this is why we have started the program. And the program we do now in the second iteration is a joint program together with GIZ's Make IT in Africa initiative.
Okay.
So this is really helping us to leverage also the local capacity, the connection with the local accelerators and the local ecosystems. Because there's already so much going on the African continent. I think there are now over 350 innovation hubs and maker spaces and accelerators, and connecting with them and really, again, inspire to use the knowledge to apply aerospace technologies to the challenges that are there was for me really motivating.
Okay, and what's the experience that you've had so far in terms of startups that were selected, in terms of innovation? Is that very different from what you've seen in Hamburg, or?
Yeah, it has been an amazing experience, because actually for us it's also a challenge to the program how we have been running it right now. We work with an external partner. We work not only with the GIZ, but we also work with MES, the Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology, and with InnoCircle, who help us to execute the program. Again, the local knowledge is really what we are lacking in our program. And the program has been interesting also for me so far, because this time we have selected 10 startups from 7 African countries, and they are in brackets competing with each other because they are using similar technologies to address the challenges that they are facing. And this so far we have not done in our program, but really it shows also the excitement of having teams with similar technologies in one cohort, because they learn so much from each other. So actually the most business development that we have seen so far is among the teams. Somebody offering the other one advice on some software, or providing a drone to do a service, or one team has heard about a contract in a region where they are not operating, but one of the other startups is operating. So actually by this, we are creating bridges among the startups. We are creating bridges among the different technology hubs that are already active on the continent. And this for me has been, I would say maybe a surprise, but even more than that has been an eye-opener about what role we as BizLab, as an aerospace accelerator, can play also in the African ecosystem.
Great. Well, that's a pretty interesting project. I guess all the information is also on your website?
Most of it, yes. Airbus-bizlab.com.
Okay.
Or we have also LinkedIn. You have also a lot of information on LinkedIn or on Twitter.
Okay, we'll make sure we put that in the show notes.
Yes.
Which brings me, I'm close to letting you go, to set you free again. So I have a series of short, rapid-fire questions. They're fun, they're easy, and it just gives us a different vibe and a different view on who you are and what you do. So you ready?
I'm ready. Yes.
It doesn't hurt.
Okay.
So, what's the first thing you do in the morning?
I look outside the window and enjoy the view of the sky, and just try to slowly wake up and start the day.
Great. And you'll do this in your new place?
Yes. Okay. Because now I don't see the hotel in front of me. I actually now see the garden on the backside.
Oh, really nice. Oh, great. Send us pictures. Question number 2. What's the last book you read?
The Value of Everything from Mariana Mazzucato.
The Value of Everything. I haven't heard. What is it about?
Mariana Mazzucato is an economist, and I read already a few books from her, and it's really about a new way of Rethinking Capitalism was her last book that she did. And the value of everything is that how do we value work? How do we value activities in society, and by that really creating a new understanding of us as a society and of the contribution that people make to society.
Okay, so maybe moving away from just a GDP growth type of measurement.
That's one of the answers. Yes.
Okay, I'll put that on my to-read list. What's the one thing that keeps you motivated?
Change. And change towards a better and more sustainable future.
What time do you get up in the morning?
Between 6 and 6:30.
Okay. What time do you go to bed?
Between 10 and 11.
Which habit have you developed recently that most improved your life?
Go regularly to sports.
What kind of sports?
I do capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial art. Yes.
Yes, that's nice. There's a school close by. I'm a bit afraid, though, to get started with this.
It's a lot of fun. It's every level can do capoeira. No matter if you're a small schoolboy or if you're a tall, strong woman, both of them can play with each other and have a lot of fun. So please do go.
I'll work a little bit on my flexibility and give you a report.
Okay.
My final question, how do you measure if you're successful?
I measure my success in the way that I have touched and changed people's life around me.
Great. Well, Ray, thank you so much. You will be, just as a reminder, at the Wear It Innovation Summit in Berlin at the end of June, right? It's the 25th and the 26th. We will be there, so looking forward to meet you in person. And thanks a lot for your time and your contribution.
Thank you, Michel. It was really exciting to go through these reflections with you. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, that's it for today. We hope that you enjoyed the episode. Quick reminder, we'll be at the Wear It Innovation Summit in Berlin, June 25th and 26th. This is Europe's leading conference and platform for professionals in the wearable technology business. So if you're around, please let us know. We're always happy to meet up. Also, you can get in touch with us to ask questions or give us some feedback on the podcast. You can also check us out at astronaut.com. Thanks a lot for listening and have a great one.